Welcome back to another episode of First and Nole. Ariya Massoudi, Roberto Aguayo, Curt Weiler, and a couple episodes now with the former Tampa Bay Buccaneer second-round draft pick and Grozo Award winner. Berto, big win for Florida State over LSU. We're going to have that on tap. Curt, you were there covering it. Interested to hear your insights from the press conference and from Media Row all weekend. And then we'll talk a little bit more about what this win means for FSU going forward. Mike Norvell gets his signature win at Florida State. Curt, we'll start with you. 24-23. Before we dive into the nitty gritty, just initial thoughts on what that type of win took from Florida State.
What it took? I mean, it was, I venture to say, not as close as the final score would indicate. I mean, obviously it came down to the block point at the end, but I think you look at some missed opportunities from Florida State, some things that went in LSU's favor. Obviously, LSU helped FSU out a couple times as well, but I think it's entirely possible that Florida State could have put up 35, could have put up 38 in this game. I mean, a couple dropped touchdowns, a missed field goal. So, I mean, I think it took a really impressive performance. I think when you look at what it came down to, I mean, the defense all but locked down LSU for about 3 quarters. I think they gave up the first touchdown late in the third quarter, and Jordan Travis had quite a showing on a national stage. It was pretty cool to see so many national people be like, oh, Jordan Travis. Like, I feel like last year people kind of discounted Florida State past a certain point where they were like, this team is what it is and Jordan is what he is. And I think he made a lot of believers out of people who definitely weren't before, both in the fan base and on the national stage.
Roberto, some initial thoughts from you on the win, and then also if you could just touch on what you thought of Jordan Travis.
First of all, it's a huge win. Whatever, at the end of the day, on paper, that's a W. It doesn't matter what the score is. Proud of those guys, proud of Coach Norvell and all the coaching staff. And to go in there, I mean, it was a neutral site, but still, I mean, it's close to Baton Rouge. And I think coming out with a win, it's just builds confidence and will snowball the rest of the season. So, I mean, there's a lot to talk about and a lot to dissect. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and Jordan Travis was really good on the game. I think he was anticipating having a strong season. When people talk to him back in July and early August during camp, he would tell you, I feel like this is the best that I have ever really been playing as a quarterback. This is the most confident I've been. It's my team. And you're starting to see that, I think, from him, just the ownership he has on that huddle. Roberto, you said it last week on the pod that when the quarterback is your leader and everyone in that locker room knows that's the guy you rally around, it makes all the difference in the world. You played with Jameis Winston and the grip that he had on that locker room. Are you starting to see the same level of ownership, I should say, I guess, from Jordan Travis on this squad?
Oh, yeah. You could just see it when he was coming out on his first drive and really the whole game. And you saw it last week too. But like I said, once you have a solidified starter, and not kind of, starting one guy, starting another guy, because then your team doesn't really know who to look up to, or then you have it split, 50-50, like, oh, I'm for the, one quarterback over the other. And usually when you have 2 guys, they're different styles, right? So the guys can't get acclimated and get in a rhythm. But now, having the whole year of him being positioned as QB1, the guys got to work with him, getting used to his throws, and has more free reign. Because think about it, if you're like, well, I don't even know if I'm going to start this weekend, then it really, in the back of your mind, if you want to speak up on something, you might not, right? Or I'm not even technically the starter yet, so I'm just going to, lay back here. But with him being the starter, he's had the whole year, and the whole year to really, the team looks bonded. The team looks like they all have one mindset, one goal, one heartbeat. That's the little motto we had when we were there. One team, one heartbeat, and you could see it in the game. And I mean, it's just going to keep progressing, like I said, and hopefully these guys can learn from some of the mistakes that they made and some of the good things that they did in this game and take it forward the rest of the season.
I think, like you said, I'm sure they are going to learn, But I mean, the nice thing, so much of the last few years, so much of the start of Mike Norvell's tenure has been kind of learning through losses. I mean, it must be nice for them to kind of learn while being able to win, while being 2-0 for the first time since 2016. I mean, that means no one on this team at Florida State has been 2-0. Maybe some other guys' transfers were elsewhere, but no one's been a part of a 2-0 team at Florida State who's currently on the team. And that's crazy. I thought, talk about Jordan Travis. I kind of thought when I was watching Jaden Daniels, LSU's quarterback, he kind of felt like 2020 Jordan Travis to me, a guy who the first sign of real pressure would bail out, wouldn't be willing to stay in the pocket, wait for his receivers to get open. And it seemed like his receivers got frustrated as the game went on. Obviously, he ended up passing for over 200 yards, but a lot of that was late in the game. Jordan, we saw through the camp, I mean, how he was willing to stay in the pocket, let his plays develop, stand in there. I mean, that hit he took the targeting from Ali Gay, and to throw that dime he did while taking that hit is that's a big boy play. I mean, that is something all around. But he it is something to behold, the growth of Jordan Travis too. I mean, I saw a few guys say like full on potential NFL draft prospect. Like I think I saw a CBS analyst put out a TikTok after that game that was like, I didn't think I would ever say that, but here we are.
Yeah, I mean, that's a credit to him and the hard work that he's put in. And Curt, I like that you mentioned that because he did. He is staying in the pocket. Everyone knows that he can run, that he can get out, he can scramble. I do think, though, this season they'll focus more on the scrambles being designed runs rather than him evading the pocket at first glimpse of pressure.
And he still did take off when he got under pressure. And I mean, that LSU defensive line is very good. We knew they were going to be. I thought the offensive line did about as well as they could against that talented group, even though I know they lost Mason Smith early in that game. Still a really good group. But that is still such a weapon that he's able to escape, and he extended quite a few plays, but keeping his eyes downfield instead of where Jordan Travis the pass would have just taken off, would have picked up 8 yards. He stays downfield and finds Micah Pittman. He finds Johnny Wilson. He finds whoever for 15 yards or more. I mean, it was something to behold.
Exactly. Yeah. And just piggybacking off that, he looks poised in the pocket. He's a pass first, run second mentality. As opposed to the last 2 years where, he looked at his first read, second read, and maybe he just starts running and puts it all on his legs. But to be able to beat a team in the air, I think that's better. It protects your quarterback. He's not out there being exposed. Every time he runs, I'm just like, all right, get down. Cause you don't want to see him hurt. And on that hit that he took, I remember watching it live and I'm literally like, oh my gosh, like he's done for the game. The dude went straight to his head, and he stayed in there. He didn't hesitate or panic, or because he would have he wouldn't have completed the pass. He threw it perfectly. We score. We make the touchdown. He gets up. He's fine. Like, thank God. And the guy gets ejected. But overall, I mean, he made all the perfect throws that he needed to, and he was poised. He looked completely different than he did, last year. But that's also the help of the O-line and the receivers and trusting those guys, right? And he wasn't really, hurried that much. I mean, I don't think now. I mean, from watching the game, like he was comfortable, and that's you can see, it produced, the way we did. So
I can't remember the last time in a game of this magnitude where I looked at Florida State's offensive line and they weren't perfect, but they were the better unit. I think FSU's defensive line did more against LSU's offensive line than LSU's did against FSU's. I mean, it was a testament to, I mean, you may have been playing the last time that was the case in a game of this magnitude, honestly.
Yeah. And like all the commentators were saying that this is the best defensive line in the SEC and one of the best in the country. And we locked them down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was thinking like, oh, they're going to get all these sacks on us. They're going to get good pushes. They only had 2 sacks.
Yeah. I think it was only 1 on Jordan's first 32 pass. I think they got their second very late in the game. Because I remember when I went downstairs to the field, we didn't get on the field for the final few minutes. It was only 1.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think that's a credit, as both of you have said, to the guys around him. And you could see that with Jaden Daniels, right? Like the trust and the chemistry is not there in Brian Kelly's first year at LSU. Florida State's in year 3. And that's what you expect from a program who's been there a couple of years under one voice and one methodology, is to be more comfortable in a game of this magnitude and to make the crunch time plays, with a more level head. And I thought the offensive line played well. Florida State's O-line's not healthy. right? Like, and there's news that, of course, all week, and that's just a testament to Alex Atkins and the chemistry that they've built there, to Jordan Travis for being able to be in command of his offense. But also, guys, I think too, when it came down to Travis's play overall, that's a guy to me that believes he's a lot better than people think he is, right? Like he came into the game with a chip on his shoulder. People say he's just a running quarterback. This guy will never be able to win games with his arms. And then I look at, 11 of 17 on third down, right? For Florida State in this one. Berto, you know this well. With third down conversion rates, that's how you win football games, both offensively and defensively. If you can extend drives or get off the field, that helps you win football games. And a lot of the plays that he was making, guys, were still Jordan Travis being elusive. Like, it wasn't down the field for 100 yards rushing, but he was evading sacks. He was evading guys trying to bring him to the ground, keeping the play alive. And I mean, there was 4 or 5 different instances where he made a throw across his body, running one way across the field, that you're like, damn, like, go ahead, Jordan Travis. Like, that's big time. So he's still elusive. Brian Kelly, even in the post game, was like, we had him, dead to rights 2 or 3 different times, and we just could not bring him down. So Travis's, I think, progression and evolution as a quarterback in the pocket, it stood out to me on the night.
No, yeah. I mean, it was, he's come a long way. I mean, it speaks to, I think you talked about his kind of wanting to prove people wrong. I think you saw that with his post-game tweet with what was it? It was the shush, and then it was the zipped lips. Like, I mean, the man played it like that on the field, and then he got to talk. When you play like that, you get to talk the talk.
Oh yeah. And like now just it's fun seeing him produce the way he's producing, because a couple years ago, that wasn't the same mindset. There's, maybe some stuff that won't be said on the pod, but like, it's just, there was a lot of issues with the team. And, it was kind of, at that point where like, I don't know if, I'm built for this, or, I can do this. And a lot of the guy, and it was, the whole fan base and everyone, and just to see his growth and dealing with last year with him and McKenzie, who's going to be the starter, or we might throw him in one game, all that, to now him, like I said, going back, him being the leader of this team, being, QB1, and this is our guy, and we're going to run with him. You can see that confidence built, and he's playing with a chip on his shoulder, and, if he keeps producing like this. But it's a culmination of a lot of things, right? You said those third downs where we were 11 for 17. We weren't 3rd and 10, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 12. You can't convert those.
There were a couple, but
it was majority like the first and second downs where it was a 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5. Those are easier to convert. Easier on him where I don't have to stretch it out long. So. A combination of a lot of that, the first down play calling, the second down play calling, which led to the third down, the 3rd and 3s, the 3rd and 4s, helped us a lot. And really coming out, like I mentioned last week in the pod, where the first, couple drives were going to determine how this game was going to go. And on that first drive, LSU was driving down. And I was just like, if we can hold them to a field goal, we'll be fine. We'll hold them to a field goal. We held them to a field goal. Then they came back. And I think that's when we blocked that field goal. And then we came, and what sparked everything was that second half play with like around 13 minutes left, that trick play. That's awesome. Like the reverse pitch back, throw. That was there. We got some energy, and that put us up 7-3. So, LSU couldn't, like you said, Daniel's their quarterback, and they're going through a quarterback competition. Who's going to start? There's no real leader, and he just got there. Brian Kelly just got there. They were saying their best receiver. How do you say it? Is it Boutte or?
I think it's Boutte.
Boutte. He didn't get a reception until like the fourth quarter. He ended up with 2 receptions. Two receptions for 20 yards.
And then he ripped off all of his LSU mentions and bios off his social medias. So
he pulled an Antonio Brown.
I was gonna say it's a very receiver move. If we want to be honest, like that is a very receiver move.
LSU has a lot of problems right now that you got to fix.
I mean, here's what I'll say for LSU. Kind of the more I thought about it and the more I watched that team, it kind of reminded me. It's not to say they'll automatically go down this path. They have a chance to have a good year. I saw a bit of kind of 2018 FSU, a talented team that didn't seem culturally all the way there. I know that one LSU commentator or the writer talked about just how Brian Kelly just kind of was stoic during the game, wasn't really talking to people, wasn't involved. And so it'll be interesting to see what way that goes, because no doubt Ed Orgeron culture-wise did not leave them in a good place.
Yeah, I mean, too, I thought it was a weird fit personally.
100%.
When Brian Kelly was hired at LSU, there are certain Southeastern jobs, right, in the Deep South that require certain personalities.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that Brian Kelly can't be successful at LSU, but the type of kid he recruits, the type of culture that he's going to have to try and bring down from a football standpoint, it's going to change over a matter of a couple seasons, right? Like the types of players that are his are different than the types that Coach O would have brought on, or a Les Miles would have brought on, or anybody else, like a Nick Saban when he coached there, right? Like it's just different vibes altogether. They did seem out of sync, which is why I think a lot of people picked Florida State to win this game. I mean, yes, the national media may not have done its due diligence on the situations, and you just assume that Brian Kelly, because of his pedigree, is going to get things right. But all three of us thought FSU had the advantage of playing a game, of working out some of the kinks before they got to play LSU, and that they're in year 3 of a system and a tenure with a lot of guys that are more solid in their roles than anything LSU was running out there. So I wasn't surprised that Florida State won. I mean, it was expected, I think. And quite honestly, you both already mentioned it. That game between the lines was not as close as the final score even indicated. FSU could have realistically won that game 34-17 or, 38-24. Like it was a very much a comfortable Florida State between the lines type of victory that FSU, because of its mistakes, kind of gave that last gasp effort to LSU to have some life. But are there other units that impressed you? We can talk some defense right now too, because I'm always told, and Berto, you've been told, the SEC has the physicality. They've got the speed. They've got the nasties on defense. Yet it was FSU who was applying all the big hits, it felt like, in this game.
Yeah. And I mean, before we get on that topic, just to piggyback, I'm saying piggyback again, but like, it just goes to show you how hard it is, coming in as nothing against Brian Kelly. He's a great coach, but coming in brand new year, right? Brand new quarterback. And you might have the best athletes on the field, but if they can't vibe together, they can't be on the same page, and, they're blaming each other. It just goes to show the experience. These guys, FSU, they've been, running it since 2019, trying to build this, and they're more experienced. And that you can see, no costly, really big mental mistakes that you saw LSU have, that ended up, being in our favor. And speaking about, the defense and other units, I mean, the special team, their special teams unit dropped the ball. I mean, 2 muff punts, two field goals that were blocked. That's a huge difference. And if they didn't have those muff punts, it might have been, and those 2 blocked field goals, it could have been a different game. So you got to look at the little things sometimes. And their defense, like I said, their defensive line was, the best in the SEC. And this guy, projected this round, and this guy's projected first round. And, we were able to stay in there, but we looked like the more experienced team, the more we were on the same page. Those guys weren't on the same page.
No, 100%. I think I have to mention here, Roberto, you brought up special teams. Obviously, the block field goals help. The muff punt recoveries help. I think through 2 weeks now, through 2 games, while everyone else has played 1 for the most part, FSU special teams, I think, are the best in the country per Pro Football Focus. 91.1, I want to say they're graded out at.
You love to hear it, baby. You love to hear
it. Mastromanno's been phenomenal as a punter. I mean, he
still no touchbacks.
He's
over 2 years.
He's been awesome. Obviously that Australian football style of punting has helped him neutralize the ball, inside the 20, inside the 10. I thought Fitzgerald struggled for much of the night. I'll give him his credit though. He did come back and and he did hit the one, he hit the 25-yarder, I believe. But Florida State had no big mistakes on special teams, right? Like no major mistakes. And then Norvell's been huge on special teams since he came to Tallahassee. That's been an emphasis for him. At Memphis, they were strong at it. And we've seen other coaches who have a strong emphasis on special teams. They have very strong programs, right? Roberto, when you look at blocking an extra point or a field goal, can you kind of take us through some of the like X's and O's of what happened on some of those blocks and what you're looking for is on the offensive side of things and on the defensive side?
Definitely. And like you said, Coach Norvell focuses on special teams and makes it a priority. It reminds me of a guy when I was there that had the same mentality. And
you can say the name. I think that'll be.
You can say his name.
No.
He's not like
Coach
Voldemort.
Fisher.
Like
no.
Voldemort.
No, Coach Fisher. I always call him Jimbo, but Coach Fisher, he prioritized special teams, and it was a focus. And it's surprising when you hear other guys on other teams where we only focus on field goal or punt or special teams. A little bit, right? We're not out there, focusing on the details. Coach Fisher focused on the details, and that's why, our special teams produced. And at the end of the day, it's going to make a difference. If your offense and defense are neck and neck, it's going to be the field position battle on special teams, the block kicks, the made field goals, the kickoff return. Like that's when I see a kickoff or a punt, I'm looking at, okay, can we return it past the 25? Are they making the good blocks? Or is he making the right cuts? It's all intriguing for me because I've seen it at the high school, collegiate, and the NFL level. The NFL is special teams room is prioritized the same as offense and defense because that's where you're going to make the difference when it's a two close teams, right? Especially in the NFL, every game there's a statistic that at the end of the season, 4 to 6 games are going to end up within 3 points. So special teams are going to matter. And seeing the block kicks, so the guys on the end are taken out with the operation. If you're under a 1-3-5, those guys on the end trying to run around and block it aren't going to block it. All the guys on the end have to do is just put a hand, make them run around. If you don't put a hand on them, they'll have a chance to block it if they time it right. But the guys in the middle have to, and Coach Trickett, when I was there, he would say, bite the bullet. You got to bite the bullet. You're going to get blasted up in there. All you need is 2 seconds. 2 seconds. Just hold your water. Just block them, hold them up. And that's all. 1-3-5. That's all you need. That's the operation. 1.35 seconds or below. And on that first field goal, the LSU team didn't make they didn't bite the bullet. Man, who knows? Do they work on the field goal team? Are they getting ready for that? Or are they just kind of, mindlessly going by it? All right, field goal. All right, cool. So it shows now. And now I know for a fact they're going to be working on that field goal block. That whole field goal team is, all right, who's going to be starting next week? But no, we made a good push where it needed to be. And there's different techniques to block a field goal. And if you run it right and you make a good push, you get in there and you block it. And it's people, the majority of fans, assume, like you said before we started recording, where everyone thought it was going to go to overtime because they're like, oh yeah, he's going to make this extra point. Right. But hey, it's not over until, oh yeah, we got to score the touchdown, but we also got to make the PAT. So, you people overlook it until something like this happens. And you got to take that serious, and you can't take plays off in practice. You can't mindlessly blow through it. You can't just put people there, so we can rest the other guys. No, you're putting your best guys out there to block, because a field goal, whether it's an extra point or a field goal, those are points. And you need to, doesn't matter if you have the best kicker in the world. If your guys can't block, you're going to get field goals blocked, and it cost LSU.
And I think early in Norvell's third season now, that's the third game they've blocked multiple kicks in. Mm-hmm. They did against Georgia Tech in his first game. They did against North Carolina in 2020. I mean, that speaks to the work they put in and the what they reap because of that. And I mean, you see, he talks about kind of when special teams are when we pay this attention to them. Teams are good when guys want to be on that. I mean, that's Jared Verse, your starting defensive end, a guy who had 2 sacks, 2.5 tackles for loss in that game. We'll talk about him in a minute. Who blocked that first kick? I mean, when your good guys want to be a part of that, it's when good things happen.
Oh yeah, and when you see guys in practice where like, I got to go on field goal block, like I got to go on kickoff return. It's like, all right, dude, if you don't want to be on here, no, we're gonna put a guy that wants to be on here. But when you see your starting guys, your Jared Verse, and I remember when I was at FSU, we had Marcus Joyner on field goal block, Jalen Ramsey, like all the starters, and on kickoff as well. Like that's what made us great on special teams. And, you can see this, with these guys with the 2 field goal block, they didn't go in there thinking, oh, well, we're going to go to overtime, and just kind of half-ass they went in there, full go and it showed. So it's exciting to see that. It's exciting to see that Norvell puts emphasis on that, and they reap what they sow, and you saw it. And I wouldn't be surprised if we have a couple more field goals blocked the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think track record says that Florida State's going to find a way to block a few more kicks. And, when special teams are that big of an emphasis, and Berto said it, but that's the difference, in winning a championship or not sometimes. Like FSU is going to get better talent to come into this program as they continue to build and progress, right? Eventually, you're going to be able to talk about beating or competing with the Clemsons and the Bamas and the Georgias of the world. At least you better hope you're in that conversation, because that's the goal of a program like Florida State. Once you do get the Jimmies and the Joes, as they say, right? It does come down to X's and O's and different units that can make a difference. And special teams can be the difference between a 1-point win and a 1-point loss. And that's very heartwarming to see that Florida State puts this level of care into its special teams. As Berto said, and Curt, you've alluded to, the fact that a lot of the guys who are impact players want to be on special teams. Quite frankly, Florida State could have very well lost this game. And it was the special teams that made all the difference in the world. The two punt muffs that LSU had, Florida State didn't end up capitalizing on either of them. Didn't get points off either of them. So did they make a difference in the game? No, not really when it came down to scoreboard. LSU ended up scoring on the drive anyway when Florida State fumbled from the field position switch. So that could be something down the road, that they work on, is capitalizing on other teams' miscues. But special teams did win the game. Jordan Travis, I thought, set the tone. And that was another thing I wanted to talk about. I thought FSU gripped momentum for much of the game. Like they really didn't let LSU feel. I mean, LSU felt like in the middle of the third quarter, early fourth, like I think LSU felt like they were like in trouble. Like not just in trouble, but like, oh man, we might get blown out. Right? Like, is that how you guys felt? Like the energy it took from LSU to even just come all the way back, I thought made a huge difference in the game.
No, I definitely think so. I mean, I think, and it definitely helped. I mean, with how that played out, I mean, where were you sitting in the stadium, Ariya?
Section 618.
Were you on the FSU side?
I was.
There was a pretty clear FSU side and an LSU side. I thought when I went on this trip, I was like, if this is like 60-40 in favor of LSU fans, like that would be fine, because it's to be expected, because they're about an hour from campus. We were about 5.5 from FSU's campus. Like but I mean, even when I got there Friday afternoon, just all the fans I saw, and part of me was like, well, a lot of LSU fans are probably just going to day trip. They might still have like a crowd advantage. It was probably about 50-50.
Yeah.
And because of the way the game played out, the FSU fans dominated it. Like I saw multiple LSU fans be like, man, am I never tired of hearing that war chant? Like, because the team gave them chances to do the war chant over and over again. I mean, it was allowed in the Superdome.
That's awesome. You could also hear it on TV. That you'd hear the war chant playing, after we made some big plays, and I think that makes a difference. I mean, everyone was there. Everyone on social media, everyone was in Nole, kind of gave me FOMO. I wish I would have went, but no, our fans travel well. I saw I heard the hotel address of the team hotel got leaked. Everyone was at the hotel when those guys got there. But that's big energy, right? That's huge. The guys, either way, like if you're not waking up and ready to play, know it's a big game, like you shouldn't be playing. Like this was going to be a big game regardless. But I think a culmination of a lot of things. These guys were juiced, ready to go. They looked poised. They didn't look stunned. Oh, this is our first time here. They've had that last year, the Notre Dame. So, and I think Norvell did a good job of prepping those guys and getting them ready for the environment, so they weren't starstruck. And like, oh my gosh, we're in the Superdome. We're playing an SEC team. No, those guys are poised, ready for business, and maneuvered through a game where we knew it was going to be close, right? We knew it was going to be tight, and there was really, at the end of the game, it should have been what 30. 31, was it 23, 31-17?
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
At best, right? Like for LSU, like it could have been way worse if FSU converts on some of the other stuff. Went for it on fourth down instead of kicking a field goal right before the half. I didn't hate it.
I didn't either.
I get it.
Analytics say go there.
I get it. Didn't convert. Obviously, they fumbled on the goal line, on the 1 yard line late in the game to go up 31-17. Let's talk about that for a second. Thoughts on a toss pitch on the 1 yard line? I mean, I know you guys have differing opinions. That's why I'm going to ask this question. So, Curt, I'm going to start with you. I think you were in favor and didn't mind the HB toss.
I mean, it was open. He would have scored a touchdown. I understand why people are against it in theory. I do get that. My thought is, how many times have they run that exact play without incident? Like, you probably run that toss how many times in the preseason and never once had that happen. Obviously, the moment of a game, things like that can happen, and there probably were safer calls, and Norvell has done well to kind of own up to, like, it was unnecessary. I didn't need to do that. We probably could have scored on a dive or on a keeper even. There were other ways to go about it. And truthfully, you probably hit that field goal. Odds are very good you hit that field goal, even if they don't score on third down and it comes to fourth down, and then it's a 2-score game. The game's all but over. But
exactly,
I did see someone on the board say it. Our board, I don't know the name offhand. Hopefully they listen. And I gave you a shout out. I think the odds, truthfully, of that toss going poorly are even lower than the odds of a field goal going bad in that situation. I mean, we saw in that Virginia Tech game Friday night, that snap went over the holder's head and got returned for a touchdown, like 55 yards. Weird things happen. So there is no perfect solution there. I think, I don't know. I think Norvell is still learning some of that stuff at this level. And I think it's not too unsimilar from Jimbo and some of the growing pains he had to go through as a head coach at this level early in his coaching career.
Yeah. And, now in hindsight, we can say, he shouldn't have pitched it. But you're right. I mean, like, you run that play all the time. I personally, like, I think, in the moment I thought, why are you running a pitch play? Like, but, coaches, sometimes make mistakes as well. And whether, he now realizes like, oh, maybe I should have ran a different play, just like players make mistakes, coaches make mistakes too. But in the end, you could have said, well, he had it in his hands. He fumbled it. Why, he shouldn't have fumbled it. But run a dive or run something up the middle. And even if you don't get it, a field goal, it's basically an extra point. But then again, if that doesn't go right, we miss extra points, something happens, why were you running up the middle? We can discuss a lot of things of how it went, but we were on the 1 yard line. We need a score there. And to be honest, if we would have won that game 31-17, like, would we be ranked right now? Like,
that's a really good question, because I think the answer might be yes. I think it's a pretty good shot.
It's possible. I always thought it was going to take winning both of them, because it's not like Florida State was even close. Like, I don't know if they received a single vote in the kind of week one poll, maybe one, but like I
saw a couple votes for 25. Yeah,
I think if they beat Louisville, they'll be ranked in 2 weeks, because that game's not this weekend. But we'll see. I mean, it's just it's interesting. I mean, we can talk about it. It was a fairly positive preseason for Mike Norvell. I think covering some coaches, they kind of feels like they alternate the good day, bad day to a bit to kind of maybe use the media to send a message. And after today's practice, he didn't do this a lot in the preseason, but Norvell called today's practice, we were out there, an average practice was the word he used. And he kind of felt like some guys were maybe resting on laurels a bit, or just that it was not a practice where they maximized their opportunities. And his kind of message to them, especially, he definitely saw a few players after that game fell into the trap of, I think, Jared Verse and Pokey Wilson said, Florida State is back.
Yeah.
And I mean, Mike Norvell kind of tried to backpedal that, I think, to ESPN and Andrea Adelson the next day. But I think his message to them was kind of like, if you're going to say you're back, you've got to back that up. You have to prove that. You can't be back off of one game because of one great win and coast on that.
Yeah, the consistency is going to show, and that's going to be now a new challenge for Coach Norvell and all the coaches is not to now, we beat LSU, we beat an SEC team, we're 2-0, and now be complacent. I think, Coach Fisher would always tell us, enjoy the weekend, enjoy the win, take it all in. But when we come back to practice on Monday, it was Tuesday for them because of Labor Day. It's a new week, new team. We're focused on them, and I think that's how we were able to produce that 2013 year, because it wasn't like we're going to make it to the national championship game. We just played week by week, took it week by week. He never would say, Florida this, or that's later in the year. We're gonna every team. That's up next. That's who we're focused on. And we got to come with that same mentality because now, as we keep rolling and we keep playing like this, there's going to be expectations. And, none of the guys here have really, had that big of a win. So now you got to deal with winning, like how to win and how to move forward with that. And that's a challenge. And that's a challenge for the coaches and how to prepare moving forward. But I think Norvell is doing the right thing where, Coach Fisher wouldn't be scared to say, hey, if we had a shitty practice, he'd be like, you guys suck today. You guys got to do better. So it wasn't no pat on the back. Good job. No, it was, we had a bad practice. We got to get better. And if we want to keep winning, the way we're winning and have that feeling at the end of the game and have that plane ride, I know that plane ride coming home was fun. So if you guys want to keep feeling that feeling, we got to keep putting in the work, and our opponent has no face. We're playing, if we play our ball and if we play, mistake free, alignment, assignment, technique, we can stay in there with anyone. But now that, I heard the comments of we're back and, all right, now, now like we gotta keep working but that's good to see the guys, like they have that confidence and that excitement. Now it's just going to be, all right, can we keep it rolling? It's not just about winning one game, and we got to keep winning. So it'll be exciting to see when we go out there and play Louisville.
Yeah, I think you talk about that. I mean, I think you look at this first weekend of like the first full weekend, obviously not week 0. When you look at Florida State's schedule, Miami, you don't really make much of that with the opponent they had. Florida, I think that's an impressive win, but I don't think Florida's some steamroller. I think that's a game you'll have a chance in, especially with that being at home. Clemson didn't especially impress me. NC State probably should have lost. I would go so far as to say should have lost to ECU. Louisville did not look good at all against Syracuse. I don't know how many teams you're looking at. If you can beat that LSU team in New Orleans, I don't know how many you're looking at and being like, we do not have a chance. There have been the last few years, a few games that you're like, there's no real chance in that game. It's just about keeping guys healthy but there aren't a ton of those games. It's not to say this team's going to go 12-0. They're not that team, but that you don't look at many games in total abject fear anymore it speaks to the trend.
Hey, sometimes it's going to be like that where they're in a full season, we get help from, or other teams don't look as good as we thought they were. And I mean, I don't want to, jump ahead too much, but from what you said, there's a potential for us. I mean, really Wake Forest and NC State, but they didn't look as good. The Wake Forest doesn't have their starting quarterback. All
He's
these
back.
Little things happen. Oh, he is?
Yeah, he got cleared, I think, yesterday.
Oh, okay. Well,
but still,
but
you don't.
yeah.
I mean, you don't look near. I mean, Florida State looked outmatched in that Wake Forest game last year. They shouldn't look outmatched. Whether they win or not, who knows? But especially here with the improvement you're seeing, that should be at the worst a game.
Yeah. So, but there's a lot of things we can talk about. But from seeing these first two games, if we continue building on that, we'll be in the games for Louisville. We'll be in the games for Boston College. We'll be in the game for Wake Forest. We'll be in the game for NC State. And just as if we can go into Louisville, beat them, Boston College, be 4-0 going into Wake Forest, that's going to be a huge confidence builder for us heading into that game.
Curt, do you think it's an advantage for Florida State to be able to have a bye right now after such a big win? Do you think a lot of times people say, the bye comes when you need a health break or, like guys to get healthy. But can a bye help FSU right now kind of let the emotion wear off of such a big win and kind of refocus after, 10, 12 days before they get to Louisville?
I think so. I think when you look at, like with what Mike Norvell said today, calling it an average practice. If you're having an average practice 3 days out from a game, if you had to turn around and play a game this Saturday, obviously Florida State went through that last year, almost beating Notre Dame 6 days later to loss to Jacksonville State with the quick turnaround. I think if you were hearing that and there was a game in 3 days, yeah, that'd be a bit concerning. I mean, I think you talk about the other real moment of handling success was in 2020 in his first year. They beat number 5 North Carolina here. They I think felt like, okay, we're starting to see something. They went up to Louisville the next week and they got smacked. I think it was 48-16. It was a pretty non-competitive game. And so, I mean, I think if they use it right, it definitely can be. Now we'll have to see. I mean, we'll see what tomorrow's practice is like. We'll be out there again tomorrow.
Yeah. Berto, how hard was it? I don't know off the top of your head if you can remember. What was it like after a big win? Did you guys have any bye weeks? And how hard are these bye weeks to stay locked in to the grind of the season this early in the year? Maybe that's a better question, is having a bye week after only 2 games. How do you go about it?
I think it worked out that way because of us playing last week. And us playing last week, I think, was huge going into LSU. And now that we have that bye week, yes, I think it'll give us time to maybe give us a little bit more time to absorb and enjoy that win. And I think that's why it was an average practice today, because you're still riding the high of like, okay, we haven't done that, in a while and had that big of a win. So, we enjoyed it a little bit, longer than usual. But I think with this bye week, we have this time to, get that feeling out. And I think by next week we'll be fine. And be locked in, and the win will be past us. And, we'll see what happens this week in college football and where everyone's at. And, but we do have a bye week later down the seat in the year. So 2 bye weeks, that's huge. And I think they come at the right time, especially after a huge win. If we would have lost, I think it would have been a different story. I think it would have just been like, oh my gosh, now we got to wait, 12 days before we can play again. So, I think it's good to assess the situation, what the good we did, the bad we did, and move forward. And I know there'll be, different schemes that they'll usually in bye weeks, you practice different schemes of other teams maybe down the road, and get ready for those looks too. But I think for us, I think it helps.
Yeah, they were doing some crowd noise at today's practice, so they're no doubt they're staying on that. They did it last week before LSU. They're doing it again leading into Louisville, and with the average practice, they had some extra running, shall we say, at the end. I know Norvell always runs them on Tuesdays for kind of focus penalties they committed in the previous game, but I think there was some extra running today. We were waiting for a minute for them, so. I
think that's good. I think that the running at the end, we looked conditioned in the game. We didn't look tired. Again, props to the coaches, because you can see that at the end of the game where guys look tired and, exhausted and people are cramping and all that. So, I think the running is good and we look healthy. We look good. No big injuries in the game. So, I'm excited for what comes next.
Shout out, by the way, Pokey Wilson. for the game that he had. My gosh, all the talk this year about, Johnny Wilson and Micah Pittman and
who had the moments,
right? Malik McClain. They did. I thought Wilson was disappointing against LSU. He did some good things, blocking, made a nice catch and a run physically, but he's still
nice catches.
He's still dropping balls that I need a guy who's 6'7" to be able to kind of be a difference maker in the red zone.
He also got his ankle rolled up the week before.
Yeah.
That he was even playing was fairly impressive.
For sure. But he dropped one against Duquesne too, like right in his hands before he got hurt. So, I'm not saying he's been disappointing. I'm still expecting another gear. And we saw him in fall camp. I mean, he was incredible in fall camp. So, that's still there. But Pokey Wilson, man, the catch that he made with one hand, Berto, you mentioned it earlier when Travis got popped on the targeting. That's a game-changing play. Pittman was settling in the little spots and slots that were open and becoming a nice player. The tight ends, I thought, played pretty well for the most part for Florida State as a whole unit. And the running backs catching some passes out of the backfield to kind of extend the running game, so to speak. The offense looked good. I actually thought they looked better than I thought going in. Almost 400 yards of offense, over 5 yards per play against a pretty good LSU defense. But Curt, it was really Pokey Wilson's show. Jordan Travis to Pokey Wilson seemed like a lethal combination on the day.
Yeah, there was that chemistry there. I mean, he's been through a lot, obviously, signing alongside Tamorian Terry, his high school teammate, as a DB, moving to receiver. I think he was the leading receiver the last 2 years, but that didn't really say much. I know he didn't have kind of 400 yards in either of them. And he has kind of waited it out and been loyal. And I think was rewarded for that. And I don't think he's going to be the nice thing about this group. There are days he's had these kind of games before, but you no longer need him to have these kind of games every week because he's not that guy. He's not going to give you 100 yards on a weekly basis, but he'll have those games where he goes off. And I mean, it was big for them, no doubt. We should talk about the defense too. We should talk about Jared Verse. I made an effort to downplay Jared Verse a bit when people would try and compare him to Jermaine Johnson, the guy he was following up on. And I probably downplayed him too much because Jared Verse on that stage really, really impressed me. Obviously beyond the blocked field goal, 2 sacks, and I think another half tackle for loss.
He was insane, Roberto. I mean, the D-line looked good as a whole, but Verse was a one-man wrecking crew, and there were multiple holding calls that were missed on him getting behind the tackle. And, going in, I think FSU felt confident, right? That LSU was running some young guys out on the O-line. They were all new. They hadn't played together, and I think they certainly all took advantage.
Oh, yeah. And, starting the game, they did a good job. Yeah, LSU was making plays, but they adapted. They adapted to the situation. They adapted to the environment of the game, and holding them to a field goal in the beginning and then blocking that kick on that next drive was huge. And they stayed in the game, and it's easy, for them to, they're making big plays on us and start pounding like, I didn't see any hands in the air, any pouting, any like, you had that guy. No, they stood in there, and it's a game of 4 quarters. It's a game of 4 quarters. I think they played extremely well. They made big plays when needed. Some huge hits. They like I said, just the same as the offense. They looked in tune. They looked, that no one was confused. No one was like, oh, you go over here. That's the worst when you see guys when you're not even lined up in the right place, like nothing good's going to happen out of that. So everyone looked, in control. They were lined up where they needed to be. No one looked tired. No one made any bogus, PIs or late hits, especially like on third downs where you would see it last year or the year before where it's like, oh, it's 3rd and 12. And all of a sudden we have a late hit out of bounds or, something like that where they would get the first down. And you're like, oh my gosh, they look experienced and they played just as well as the offense did. And that last drive, they drove down and they got it close, but we ended up blocking the kick at the end and doing what we needed to do and got out of there with a win. Still, we played a great game, but there's areas that we can improve in still. And there's always areas you can improve. You can always get better. And I'm looking forward to them, dotting I's, crossing their T's every week and just getting 1% better. Because the way they look now, if they keep just getting 1% better every day, this could be a fun season.
Last thing let's touch on too, Curt, obviously the magnitude of the win. Recruiting wise, it's going to be huge. I mean, they are that there's been tangible things that some kids and their parents want to see from Florida State, because I think they still like coming to the campus. They like that coaching staff. And I mean, Roberto, you knew it when they were recruiting you. It's still got, there's still a little bit of pop to Florida State nationally in terms of how cool it is to be a Seminole in that Spear and all the greats that have come through. But they had, I think they had to see, right, like tangible evidence that you can beat somebody that's worth a damn, right? Like you've got to beat somebody for me to want to send my kid to Florida State and feel like they're going to have a chance at the next level. That's huge, obviously. Also, the buzz that's being created, Curt, in Tallahassee. You get a bye week. All that FSU is going to be doing now for the next 2 weeks, whether it's the booster office, the ticket sales, Learfield with the advertising. Man, that money's about to start rolling in because people are going to be hyped. And if they beat Louisville, there's be a mania we haven't seen in Tallahassee, Roberto, since you played.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look at it. We played prime time on Sunday in, a neutral site. There was a ton of eyes on us, and we made a statement. Now you look at Louisville next week. That's on a Friday, 7:30. That's probably going to be the biggest, game that Friday night. For sure. So that's another primetime game that there's going to be a lot of eyes on us. So it's going to be another game where we can make a statement. And then talking about the last week's podcast where, I only played probably 5 12 o'clock games. Now those games that haven't been scheduled yet, if we start winning, they're going to be pushed to 3:30 to 7:30. And if we go into Clemson 6-0, I mean, for sure. Look, Boston College not scheduled yet. Wake Forest isn't scheduled. The time isn't scheduled yet. The NC State the time isn't scheduled. Yeah. So, if we start winning, they're going to start pushing us back to those primetime games. And that's when we get the most viewers. And that's when the guys coming in, they want to be playing at night. They don't want to be playing during the day. They want to be in those big time games. They want to, where all the eyes are on you. So if we can do that, towards the end of the year, we're going to start getting, more of those night games. And I love night games. It's a fun environment.
Oh, I was going to say that's when the atmosphere at Doak is at its best for those guys who are on those official visits. Obviously, we should talk about. Hakeem Williams was in the building. That's probably, if I had to bet, number one on the priority list. He's a 5-star receiver in the 2023 class from South Florida. They don't that's not obviously a huge position of need, not a huge strength in that class right now. And from all the buzz that's come out of there, I think they've positioned themselves really well over Texas A&M, over Miami, over some really good recruiters and really good programs because of, I think, really that win and what that did for them.
100%. And Curt, you've been covering Florida State a while now, multiple outlets. When's the last time? I think you even mentioned it maybe early to the top of the show. The last time Florida State was 2-0, it had been a while.
It's 2016. So
as a result, what kind of buzz are you feeling right now, not just in Tallahassee, but amongst the fan base on the site, on the Osceola.com, and just the overall vibe right now? It feels like it's been a while since we've been this behind the football program this early in the season.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. I think people have wanted to believe, but there have been reasons each of the last 2 years, be it that Georgia Tech loss and the blowout loss against Miami to start the 2020 season, be it that Jacksonville State loss in 2021. There have been reasons to look at to be like, I want to be all in, but there are these clear, obvious issues I can't get past. And yeah, that doesn't exist right now. And like you talked about the bye week, this is, a 2-week bye period where for Florida State fans to bask in that. The downside of it might be, build up expectations. We'll see how high is kind of like what those need to be like restrained a bit. But there is proof. The proof is as evident as it's been in years that things are heading in the right direction.
Well, this is going to be a good take here. So speaking about, where the guys are at right now, it reminds me of, if we look back at it, Coach Jimbo started in 2010. It was in that 2012 year. That's when, you know, I came in, Jameis came in, Darby, that class, right? And some of us redshirted, some of them started. But that year we ended up, you know, going pretty high. And then that next year is when we won the national championship. So if we keep it rolling, that's going to be a big year of recruiting, of getting those guys in, and especially the guys that still have another year of eligibility or 2 more years to contribute. And then next year be those leaders of the team. I mean, this could be a big year for Coach Norvell and kind of getting over that hump. And yeah, I mean, there's, you know, the expectation isn't like, oh, we're going to go win a national championship. But if we can take it week by week and really show the country, you know, at the end of the season that oh, they were better than what we thought they were going to be. And then leading up into, you know, 2023, that's going to be huge. But from what it looks right now, that, you know, we got a solidified quarterback, good run everywhere, good running backs, good O linemen. So this is a big year for recruiting. If we can keep winning, keep, you know, producing the way we are, it's going to be huge.
This always coming into the year felt like a year where kind of they needed to have the results just so they could have the recruiting success. That if they didn't have the recruiting success they needed this year to get that top 15, borderline top 10 class, that it may never happen. And they may never be able to get the results in time to kind of be able to develop those players to help them before they potentially lost their jobs. I mean, you don't want to overreact too much to one game, but it felt like that Sunday had to go well, or that he would lose a decent amount of the fan base and lose any recruiting momentum he had. And so I think you saw in his immediate reaction, I mean, he celebrated a lot for just a regular game. There was a pretty big celebration from Norvell. I think that was partially relief because he knew he got away with the mess up at the end, but I think it was also relief for the big picture.
100%. I mean, 100%. And we've talked about it, I think, guys, on our podcast prior to that game. And I remember saying it myself, you know, Curt, you'll remember this specifically from some of the other shows that we do and the articles we wrote. I said the biggest game Florida State had all season long was LSU. I meant it then. I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I will. I was right. Everyone else picked Louisville, which now obviously is not. I mean, it is the most important game because it's the next game, but it's clearly not as big of a magnitude of a game because people now expect FSU to win.
Nice coach speak.
Yes, but. The point was with LSU, and I think to go back to the point that we just made about Norvell and his celebration, he's tired of hearing Florida State's never going to come back. He's tired of hearing that his process isn't working, that, you know, they have a loss to Jacksonville State, which mitigated all of the progress they made. They made so much positive progress last season, but everyone just looks at a game against Jacksonville State. Yes, it was embarrassing, but that's been hanging over him, right? The COVID year has been hanging over him. It's tough. This job was a tough turnaround, but it was a very doable turnaround because it's freaking Florida State. Mm-hmm. If you just have the patience, you're going to get FSU back to where it belongs. You know why? Mm-hmm. Because people care too much about FSU football for that brand to not resurge. So I think this game was a battle of brands. FSU versus LSU. You go into New Orleans, you see how many LSU fans are there, the passion of the SEC, the recruiting battles that you have directly with LSU. For kids, you had to win this game to be taken seriously eventually as a national power. It may not even happen this season for Florida State, y'all. Like, they might not win 9 or 10 games. That might not happen still. But I think for the first time in years, not just Norvell, not Willie Taggart, and not the end of Jimbo's tenure, people are finally starting to believe that Florida State has its magic back. And maybe they do, maybe they don't. But man, if that doesn't make for good talking points for the next couple of weeks, guys. And that's what we're here to do on First and Nole. I think that's a good way for us to wrap up this show. Berto, awesome stuff from you. We can't wait to do this again next week. Curt, you get to cover the team all week long.
I laughed. I had someone up in the press box. I heard him after Saturday's game, an LSU writer talking about baseball season already. And I was like, you know, it's nice to not be living in that mode because the last 2 years they've been that loss where you're like, ooh, man. Like, at least we got basketball. At least we got. It's nice to be living in football 2-0 mode. Like, that's not to like any homerism or like. It's just it is more fun to cover a good team. So yes,
yep.
I feel it, man. Like walking through FSU's halls, Berto, right now, everyone's in a good mood. It's different. It's a different mood than the step of the Moore Center, man.
Ooh.
It is. Everyone's a little bit more upbeat.
I'm excited. I want to run through
a little
Walmart.
friendlier. I mean, not that they're not unfriendly in general, but it's a different vibe altogether. Curt, what was the best thing you drank in New Orleans on your off time? Not
I was going to say.
Yeah, we'll be professional here too. When you were not on the clock, what was the best thing you had?
I didn't drink that much. Did
you have a beignet?
I did.
Did you like it?
Oh yeah. I had the beignets. I ate some good. I ate a shrimp po' boy. I had some good red beans and rice. I had a little bit of everything. It was indulged a little too much, I would say.
The first grenade I had on Bourbon Street the first one messed me up quick. I was like, Roberto's dying of laughter. I had to go get a piece of pizza immediately. I was like, whoa.
Did you have multiple in one night?
What? I don't want to admit things on this show. It was a very casual, professional, very mature grenade that I had.
Hey, it's all worth it after that W.
Bourbon Street after Florida State won that game was a zoo. I'm talking like garnet and gold, obviously, but people were chest bumping, high fives all the way around. Beads were being thrown in garnet and gold. It was amazing. Like, it was something that, like, this event had been planned for many years now. Yeah. People were excited about it for many years. Berto, everybody in Tallahassee was there. Like, there were 20 to 30,000 people that did not have a ticket to get in the game that decided to just come. Like, it was like, it felt like Tallahassee's formal, right? Like whether or not you had a ticket to the game, you had an excuse to go to New Orleans, everybody was coming. I ran into everybody.
Who needs an excuse to go to New Orleans?
not Florida State students and fans.
Love it, man. I love it.
They find a way.
It's next Sunday again in Orlando. I looked that up today. It's a Sunday night again in Orlando. I think it's September 3rd.
I think Berto might be at that one.
Yeah, I'll definitely be at that.
You'd be at that one. Central Florida, a little easier of a drive for you.
Yeah.
Boys, appreciate your time on this pod. First and Nole. Guys, we're on Apple. We're on Spotify. We're on Google Pods. We've got a brand new logo that I am laughing at seeing. That'll debut here tomorrow when we release this thing. But we'll get back to Monday nights when we record and have that thing for you early Tuesday morning each and every week. For Roberto Aguayo and Curt Weiler, I'm Ariya Massoudi, and we appreciate you. You've been listening to First and Nole.